Picture a 12-foot-tall, 500-pound bird grazing in the shadowy pine forests of prehistoric New Zealand. Suddenly, the canopy is blotted out by a massive silhouette. Plummeting through the branches at 50 miles per hour is Haast mori, the Haast's eagle. This bird of prey weighs at most 33 pounds, and it is actively hunting an animal 15 times its own mass. In the physics of animal flight, a lightweight predator neutralizing a half-ton target shouldn't be possible. To understand how this impossible strike actually worked, we have to reverse engineer the biological machinery of a true prehistoric anomaly. To see exactly how a small eagle evolved to hunt massive giants, we have to look at Pleistocene New Zealand. Breaking from larger landmasses millions of years ago, it became an isolated biological laboratory, completely devoid of large land mammals. There were no wolves, bears, or big cats to govern the ecosystem. That meant a massive ecological vacancy existed at the absolute top of the food chain. Nature filled that vacancy through a process called rapid somatic expansion. In evolutionary terms, it happened in the blink of an eye. A tiny 1-kilogram ancestral hawk arrived on the island and, surrounded by massive flightless prey, rapidly ballooned into a 15-kilogram giant. But growing that fast demands severe physiological trade-offs. To support its new heavy build, the eagle sacrificed several typical avian traits, pouring all its biological resources into raw, brute killing power. At 15 kilograms, the Haast's eagle hit a biological blast ceiling. It represents the mathematical limit for active flapping flight. This graph plots required flying power against the body's available power. As mass increases, the power needed outpaces energy generated. At the 15-kilogram mark, the lines intersect. The margin drops to zero, and the eagle can't afford any excess weight. CT scans of fossilized skulls reveal a phenomenon known as neuroanatomical lag. The bird's body grew 10 times larger, but its brain barely doubled. The metabolic cost of maintaining a complex brain was sacrificed to afford the sheer weight of its heavy flight and leg muscles. Modern heavyweights, like the 15-kilogram Andean condor, bypass this physical limit almost entirely by abandoning flapping flight. They rely on massive wingspans and passive thermal soaring to stay aloft without burning excessive energy. But the Haast's eagle was an active ambush predator. To afford the raw biological mass required to grapple with megafauna, it forfeited its intelligence, lost mid-air agility, and metabolic energy reserves. The result of that evolutionary investment is evident in its primary weapon. These specialized talons grew to over 4 inches long, engineered specifically for deep tissue penetration and bone-crushing grip strength. The eagle deployed these weapons using a highly specific flight strategy. Despite its massive size, it had relatively short, broad wings. It could not soar for long distances across the sky. Instead, it operated as a gravity-powered interceptor, dropping vertically from high alpine perches to navigate through tight gaps in the forest canopy. By the time it reached its target, the bird was moving at 50 miles per hour. A 33-pound object traveling at that velocity generates over 4,600 joules of kinetic energy, roughly equivalent to dropping a 150-pound iron weight from a 2-story building. Rather than striking the head, the eagle targeted the Moa's lower back, using massive kinetic energy to drive its talons directly into the pelvis, shattering the bone structure and immediately neutralizing the Moa's powerful kicking legs. We know this because the archaeological record completely preserves the forensic evidence. Fossilized Moa pelvises have been found with deep, unhealed puncture wounds that perfectly match the size and spacing of a Haast's eagle's grip. But taking down a 500-pound animal creates an anatomical problem. The eagle couldn't carry its kill away, so it had to feed on the ground. To do that, it required the skull structure of a scavenger, like a vulture. While its beak was built for an eagle's high-force bite, its neurocranium was exceptionally broad. This shape was structurally necessary to withstand the intense rotational and pulling forces needed to tear massive amounts of flesh from a heavy carcass. The Haast's eagle functioned as a biological contradiction. It integrated the wings of a forest hawk, the talons of a tiger, and the skull of a scavenger, all engineered to execute a single, highly specialized task. that intense specialization carried a fatal flaw. Operating at the very edge of physical flight mechanics meant the eagle burned an enormous amount of calories. Its survival was inextricably tied to the massive energy packets provided by Moa carcasses. It simply could not sustain its metabolism on smaller prey. About 600 years ago, that single food source was disrupted by the sudden arrival of the ultimate mammalian predator, humans. The new Polynesian settlers rapidly hunted the massive flightless moa for protein and began clearing the dense alpine forests for agriculture. Within a few centuries, the moa populations collapsed. The biological ripple effect was immediate. Deprived of its 500-pound food source, the eagle's massive high-performance engine starved. The Haast's eagle was a victim of its own perfection. It pushed its anatomy to the absolute limits of biology to rule an isolated ecosystem. Because it was so perfectly calibrated to hunt giants, it was completely incapable of adapting when a new, more efficient predator finally claimed the island.